Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Be Encouraged Moments. I'm going to say it like I do every week. We are so grateful to be here, and we are so grateful that you're here watching and that you're sharing. We can see that there are people joining the page and watching these videos, and so that brings us a lot of joy. Today I'm going to talk about an interesting topic. I want to talk about failures, which just saying the word, I'm like, I can't help but just kind of like get a little tense because when you think about failures. So I want you all to stop for a second, unless you're driving, of course, don't do that. Have you guys ever failed at something? And I'm talking like, seriously think about this, like the big, huge, total and complete failures, all the way down to the little teeny tiny, everyday failures, okay? You got some in your head because, we all fail at things. I know me personally, I have failed probably way more times than I'm willing to admit. And the feeling is crummy. Like I said, even as I started, just saying the word, I get this wash of something. I don't even know what it is. I can't identify it, but it's just like that acknowledgement that I've screwed something up. I've failed at something. So I want to ask the question, what exactly is failure?
Right.
Okay, so of course, you know me. I went and I did the Google search, and failure is defined as a lack of success or the inability to meet an expectation. Okay, I think we probably all knew that. But then I loved how it finished this off. The problem is that we read too much into our failure. Too often we tie our sense of self-worth, our self-esteem, and our self-acceptance to that said failure. So failure is absolutely a part of life. There is no escaping it. We are all going to fail many, many times throughout our life. It's just a fact. So why am I trying to shine this light on failure? Because obviously none of us feel really great about this idea of failure, and you don't want to acknowledge when you failed at something. But I want to flip that on its head, because I want you to own failure, and I want you to own it with no shame attached to it. I want you to understand that failing does not make you a failure. And I also want you to know that what you do with your failure is really what matters. Right. Okay? So I'm going to hit you with some pretty cool quotes here. Winston Churchill said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts."
That's really good.
Yeah, that's a good one. Albert Einstein said, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new." I think that's huge, and I'm going to tie more into that here in a second. And then Charlie Chaplin, who I also love, is "Failure is unimportant. It takes courage to make a fool out of yourself," which I love that. Awesome. Because there are times that I feel so foolish in the mistakes that I make, but it takes a lot of courage to not only take that risk, but then to own it, like I said, with no shame. Yes, that was foolish, but you know what? I'm going to move forward anyway.
Yep.
Failure is an inevitable concept of life. But the really cool thing that we often forget is that failure is also essential. So what do I mean by that? There are so many things in our everyday life, the people that we quote, the things that we do, the technology that we have that comes from people who went before us and failed. Not only did they fail, but they owned their failure with no shame and continued to forge forward with that failure. Still don't believe me? Still kind of struggling with this whole concept? I want you to listen to this list of names that I'm about to ramble off here in a second. These people failed on numerous occasions, numerous times, sometimes very, very publicly. And they were even told by other people to just stop, just to give up. But thankfully, they didn't. Some of my most favorite creators, people that I would say that I kind of look up to, or things that they've created have just mean a lot to me, are on this list. I've done this particular topic before, but I've always done it in a room full of people. And so I was able to show a slideshow afterward, and it talks about the failures that they experienced, the negative words that were spoken into their lives, which is really, really impactful. And obviously I'm not going to do all of that here on this video, but I encourage you to go and look some of these up, because you'll be shocked. And these don't even scratch the surface of common names of people that we know that, like I said, had to fail multiple times to get where they are today. So some of these names are Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, who I already read a really cool quote from him, Bill Gates, we all know who Bill Gates is, Charlie Chaplin, Dr. Seuss, who has like a whole week dedicated to him at schools now, Elvis Presley, George Lucas, which is one of mine, Harrison Ford, Jerry Seinfeld, J.K. Rowling. I mean, she's been all over the news with the Harry Potter books. You got Madonna, Marilyn Monroe, Mark Cuban, who now is on that show Shark Tank, where he is lending money because he's been so successful in what he does. Mark Zuckerberg, Michael Jordan, Milton Hershey. If you don't know who that is, his last name should really clear it up for you. Oprah Winfrey, Stephen King, who I absolutely adore his books, Steve Jobs, Steven Spielberg, the Beatles, Thomas Edison. This one's a big one for me, Walt Disney. I mean, he was told that he had no creative writing skills. And this is a man who saw vision in in all the stories. And Winston Churchill, who obviously was really big in the UK. These are all people who understood that failure didn't make them a failure. And that's something that I struggle with day in and day out. I oftentimes associate exactly what I said in the beginning. I associate my failures. I tie it to my self-worth, my self-esteem, and my self-acceptance. I don't know how many times I've called Jan and I talk about how I feel like I've failed. I've failed Marley. I've failed this. I've failed that because there's a thing that didn't go the way that I planned. Well, that might have been a failure, but that doesn't make me a failure. And so I would bet that most of you out there have been through what I'm talking about. And that's why I wanted to talk about failure today, because I think there's a lot of shame and embarrassment that's associated with failure. And I don't want that. I want that stigma to go away, because I want us to be able to use our failure, to take that failure and figure out how we can do it differently. Yeah. It goes back to what I said earlier about what really matters is what you do with your failure and how you react to your failure. Is it okay to have a bad day because you failed? Absolutely, 100%. Like, it's okay to not be okay with being embarrassed in front of people. Right. Like, that is totally normal. But it's letting that consume you and letting you give up on the thing that you were working on, or the thing that you were driving for, or the dreams, or the hopes, or, there's all kinds of things out there. And I think that a lot of you out there who listen are mothers. And I think that this is a stigma that definitely hits moms, because I don't know about you guys, but I didn't get a manual when I had Marley. So, I'm kind of winging this thing. And there are so many books out there that do talk about parenting, but they're all so vastly different. So what's right and what's wrong? That's not the topic today, so I'm not going to go there. But I think it's really, really important that you hear me, you hear God telling you that you're not a failure. Maybe the method you chose didn't work, so now try a different method, or work harder to figure out how to make that method work in your family, whatever the case may be. I want all of you to be encouraged today. I want to remind you to own your failures and learn from them. Don't let failures define you as a failure, and let your failures be the stepping stone that they were designed to be. Thank you, as always, for joining us for our Be Encouraged moments.